what you know about. Tell me what you know about. Loving so sweet, no beef, just us two. Yeah. Tell me what you know about. Tell me what you know about. Bus fight, put you out, take you back, 'cause baby, it's a love affair. What? Tell me what you know about your man, hugging blocks all night when he should be home hugging you. Ooh, tell me if you know what a hustle can do to true love. You'll never find a better one. All the things I do, what you know about breaking up and getting back together. You'll never find a better one. All the things I do, what you know about love. Oh, cat daddy. But with the money and the fame, oh, could it really ever change? All you wanna do is grind. Why can't we spend a little time? You're unfaithful with my love. Oh, and this money don't mean nothing. We keep going round and round, and baby, it's a love affair. Yeah. Tell me what you know about your man, giving gifts to compensate for all his shit. Oh, that's right. Oh, tell me if you know what a hustle can do. I'm telling you.
Stony, the road we trod, across the sands of time, through turbulent waves, from the bellies of beasts to underground railroads, migration, from Selma bridges to Darfur highways, from streets where we march to beats that move us, from the fire of protest to the fire of celebration, a carnival, a junkanoo, a festival, anting anting. If we can't walk, we run. If we can't run, we fly. We make a way to make our way. From hashtags to hand drums, from live streams to living rooms, from Lagos streets to London blocks, to every corner we claim as home. Every step, a link. Every link, a lifeline. Everywhere we go, there we are, as we've always been. Stone.
Good afternoon. Come on, we can be a little more lively. Good afternoon. Hey, everyone. Thank you and welcome to ADAMA's 76th episode of the ADAMA Arts Salons. My name is Armand Showers. I am the board director for ADAMA. Fahamu, I did it right this time. I said my name. The Arts Salons is a conversation series featuring contemporary artists, curators, scholars, and curatorial practitioners from across the African diaspora. Through these gatherings, we create a space for critical dialogue, creative exchange, and meaningful community connections. We host the art salons at Pittsburgh Yards alongside exhibitions and other creative projects throughout the year. We're also pleased to share that ADAMA's current exhibition, The African Game, is on view at Pittsburgh Yards, and we invite you to experience it all. If you haven't done so already, please go in there. It's a beautiful, beautiful exhibit. A public art project by Andrew Desanmu. Through the lens of photography and filmmaking, Desanmu's The African Game shifts the focus from the pitch to the fans, capturing Africa's deep passion for football. Shot across multiple countries, the exhibition unveils football as a language of connection and celebration of community. With a cinematic perspective, Desanmu presents football as a ritual and shared devotion, creating an archive of contemporary Africa alive with joy, resilience, and spirit. Dasanmu's a Nigerian photographer and filmmaker who came into prominence in the United States after directing music videos for various artists, including Isaac Hayes, Angie Stone, Common, Tracy Chapman, Wyclef Jean, Khalees, Aaron Neville, and Talib Kweli and Maxwell. That's a lot to read and say on the phone, so we'll keep going. All right, and now I have the pleasure of introducing our panelist and moderator for today's Art Salon. The panelists, Maori Karmael Holmes, and moderator Errin Haines. Holmes founded BlackStar Film Festival and serves as Chief Executive and Artistic Officer of BlackStar Projects. She has organized film programs and exhibitions at Anthology Archives, Barnes Foundation, MOCA, ICA Philadelphia, and Whitney Museum. She's also a filmmaker with directing and producing credits. Her writing has appeared in Scene, Documentary Magazine, The Believer, Film Quarterly, and Pleasure Activism, The Politics of Feeling Good. Sorry. I can give a hand clap for that esteemed set of accomplishments. And our moderator, Errin Haines. Errin is the editor-at-large and founding mother of The 19th, a nonprofit independent newsroom focused on the intersection of gender, politics, and policy. Errin was previously national writer on race and ethnicity for the Associated Press. Erin's expertise on issues of race, gender, and politics makes her a thought leader in her industry. So without further ado, I'm going to step aside and let these ladies do their thing.
Thank you, Armand, and I love that shirt. I was actually in Montgomery yesterday for the big voting rights demonstration, and so shout out to EJI, shout out to Brian Stevenson and the work he's doing. But good afternoon. Hey, y'all. How's it going? Well, I mean, I also just cannot get enough of that ADAMA video. How much do we love that? I get inspired every single time that I see it. As Armand said, I'm Errin Haines. I'm really glad to be with all of you at ADAMA for the 76th installment of this Art Salon, which is a space that is really intentionally created for conversation, shared learning, and community connection across the African diaspora. So shout out to everybody that is also tuning in to watch this conversation, and thank you to all of you for being here. And welcome also, again, as Armand said, to opening weekend of the African Game. Obviously, there's no World Cup without the diaspora, right? So, you know, we are going to do this for the culture, especially in Atlanta. So after you get through listening to us and checking out Scene, please, please, please make a stop by the gallery to see this really dynamic and inspiring exhibit. But today we are celebrating the release of Scene, issue 10. Congratulations, Maori. Yes, clap it up. And again, Scene is the Journal of Visual Culture from BlackStar Projects, and it platforms nuanced and rigorous writing by and about the global majority. This latest issue continues that work with artists, thinkers, and cultural workers, including Arthur Jaffa, Beverly Wood, Cheryl Dunye, Courtney Baker, Mariam Banani, Dihad Kader, and as you can probably see and guess from the cover, our very own Dr. Fahamu Peku. This work of art that you are seeing on the cover is Fly Girl, which, what is that, 2024, Fahamu? 2023. So yeah, I mean, just a few years ago, I vividly remember seeing that, so immediately recognized the image and was so excited to see it on the cover. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. Maori, as it was said, is the founder of BlackStar Film Festival, and this is kind of a bit of a full circle moment for us, Maori. I mean, I first met you and became aware of BlackStar when I lived in Philadelphia almost a decade ago, because I was attending the film festival to go to a panel discussion on Black male identity that featured our very own Dr. Peku, and so I had a chance to meet you, hear from those amazing panelists, and kind of see some of the amazing films that were part of the film festival. So just really excited to be in conversation with you today. So welcome to Atlanta.
Thank you.
I'm glad that we get a chance to reunite to talk about Black visual representation and why it matters, right? So let's start with Scene. I mean, I certainly did not know that you, I mean, hello, keeping this a secret from us. We're going to tell everybody about Scene today, though. So let's just start with the title itself, Scene, right? It's just, It's a very simple word, but it feels very powerful, especially for Black and Brown and Indigenous artists, audiences, critics. Like, it carries a lot of weight, right? So when you think about what it means to be seen, I know you think about this all the time. It's really the literal reason for BlackStar's existence. But seen and not just represented, right? Not just consumed, not flattened, but like truly seen. What does the word seen mean to you? And now that we're on issue 10 here, what does it mean for a scene and this journal to be evolving?
Well, I think, so BlackStar comes from, I'm sure most of you know, but just in case you don't, comes from Marcus Garvey's BlackStar shipping line that then became a symbol for Ghana and many other countries on the continent and in the Caribbean, and for Rastafarians and for many other, just sort of like Afrocentric, Black focused, Pan-African movements, the idea of this shining Black star of some kind. And also I think the idea of Garvey's of, what is the word I'm looking for? Not self-representation, but like independence and, ownership and all of that. Self-determination, thank you. And so that was sort of how we got to, BlackStar was named by Dr. Yaba Blay, who is Ghanaian, and so she's obsessed with all things BlackStar. But it really resonated when we started the festival because we initially started as a Pan-African project. It was meant to be a one-time festival. And at the time, it's 2012, and so for me, it was Pan-African. It also had an Afrofuturistic sound. I'm someone who's obsessed with Rastafarian aesthetics, so it was very much there. And so I share all of that background because Scene is emanating also from Rastafarian aesthetics. Yeah. So it is obviously to be seen, which is something that I think we all desire, but I also thought of it as an affirmation. So, when people say seen, like, I understand you, I see you, that was the hope with this journal, that we would be able to, so many of the artists who participate in BlackStar and other projects that I've worked on get interviewed by mainstream publications, get interviewed by non-people of color, and they're often having to do, the kind of 101, who are you, where are you from, what does that word mean, before you can even get to talk about the work. Or when you talk about the work, it's always in comparison to some white work. And I wanted to have a space where you could get into the practice and the craft very quickly, or if it was a profile about the person, it wasn't exoticized. It wasn't about like, oh, what is it like to be a Palestinian print worker? It was just like, what is it like, what brought you to making prints,
Right.
So that's where it comes from.
Yeah, I mean, I love just the clarity of vision that you had even from the beginning. And I'm wondering, I mean, now that we're on issue 10, like, has your understanding even of visibility changed since that first issue of Scene?
It becomes more and more critical.
Yeah.
I think there was a brief moment. We started the journal in 2020. The first issue came out that fall. And we thought we were going to do it 4 times a year.
So you always thinking this is going to be temporary. I don't know why you think that.
Well, I don't
'cause
mean
it's good.
temporary. I thought it was going to be more regular.
You thought the film festival was going to be once? Oh, so you thought
This is the
was
opposite.
actually going to be the opposite of that.
I thought it was going to be, quarterly. I had big dreams, and what the resources to do it, to print it, to get it out, just didn't really realize. So we ended up, it's semi-annual now, so it comes out twice a year. So there's been some lessons in the distribution, and there are folks who are hardcore stans who have every single issue, and then constantly, I think there are people who don't know about it. We have a very small subscriber base, and that's just because of our marketing budget, and you realize why print publications don't exist, because what they require, you know this very well, is sort of beyond the means of the scale. It can't really pay for themselves, which is also film festivals. Everything I do doesn't pay for itself. So because I'm running this nonprofit, I was able to subsidize this production along with everything else that we're subsidizing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's why it feels so important for us to be talking about this, so that our people know that this is something that they can support, that they should support, right? I mean, especially to your point, I mean, to have first of all, print publications, period, still coming out, right? Not to mention one that is done with such care and such quality and such rigor, Like, that is rare. That is rare in this day and age where you're not seeing something like this on your tablet, on your laptop, on your phone. You get to hold it in your hand. You get to turn the pages. You actually get to, encounter.
Yeah, we wanted to make something people would keep. I mean, I still have the first issue of Honey.
Yes.
If you're old enough to
That's
know
a
what that
collector's
is.
item. Right, y'all look at it.
I've loved magazines my entire life. My mother's here, she can attest to that. Like, I love them and sometimes would collect them not on purpose, but there are issues that I have kept, and Fader and Flaunt and just some of these that were made with a lot of care and intentionality. I wanted to have that for us, not only for the journal, but for the artists in the journal. Yeah. They deserve to be discovered, 50 years from now.
Yes, yeah, and I think that is one of the things that feels so important about this journal is thinking about what it requires beyond access to like a screen or a gallery wall to really be seen, right? This journal is something that does that, so thank you for that. I do want to talk a little bit about this issue in particular. As we said, Fahamu is the featured artist on the cover, but also he's the subject of one of the articles that is in this issue. And can you just say a little bit, y'all gonna have to buy it if you want to actually, or check it out on that table if you want to actually see what is being said. But what can you tell us about the article that features Fahamu in here?
So in every issue, we do something that's called a studio visit, where we visit a working artist in their studio. Our first one was with Amy Sherrill, which I know she just had her exhibit open this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Clap it up.
And it's just an element that we've done since the very first, because it felt like a cool, I love the Proust questionnaire in Vanity Fair, like thinking about that thing that you're going to have in every single issue that allows you to kind of get to, sometimes, Us Weekly does what's in your bag, just sort of what is that thing that's kind of, I think there's a word for it in journalism. It's like it's not a vertical, but it's a constant kind of column piece.
Yes, in my my brain fog at the moment is escaping me, but yes, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, we just wanted to have that recurring element, but also in a way that made sense for what we were trying to do with the journal. So because it's focusing on visual art, focusing on contemporary art and visual culture, we thought making it a studio visit would make sense. Some of them, we did do one with Arthur Jaffa, and it was a video, which was really cool. We had a little bit more resources, but it's been awesome to have photographers visit with the artist, and to have them talk about, what they wear in the studio, and just some of those things that you may not always get to find out.
Well, I love that the studio visit gives people a window kind of into that world and that artist world. But also, I mean, just listening to you, you're such a student of the craft, but also in a way that allows you, given that you are coming to this with the cultural competency, to make this something that is ours and that is from our lens and our gaze, right? Like, that feels really, really important. I mean, BlackStar is widely known through the film festival, and it does sound like Scene is really doing something that is very distinct. It's criticism, it's conversation, it's archive, it's cultural record. Can you just talk a little bit more about what writing does that the festival alone couldn't do?
So if you've never been to BlackStar or to a film festival, our structure is there are about 35 film programs over 4 days. A lot of them features, about 30 features, 60 shorts, broken into about 10 programs. And then we have panel discussions, we have parties, and other kinds of, gatherings for people. And I think in 2015, started including in the program guides interviews and essays about some of the films. And this was just because I always wanted to have a magazine. Yeah. So I was like finding ways to kind of
manifesting on the low.
Absolutely.
I got it. Okay.
So just finding ways to put that into the program guide, but also because not everybody is on a panel, not everyone gets to participate in a Q&A, and people are really interested in how artists think and what makes their work move. And we did that for about 2 years, and then I was working at a museum during the day. BlackStar was my side project. And I was really impacted by European festivals which produce catalogs in addition to their program guides. So we did a catalog for twice. We only did it 2 years. But it was separate from the program guide. So a catalog being something that was meant to be kept, as opposed to most people kind of throw program guides away after they make their way through the festival.
I'm a keeper of those things too.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we did a separate catalog in 2017 and kind of expanded on, we had more essays, more profiles, more reviews of the films. And it was really satisfying to see that work. I think we did 12 pieces for that 2017. And the filmmakers were so excited to have it for themselves. It itself is, now an archival piece. But what I think writing does that attending the festival doesn't do is the person, the critic who's writing about the work gets to situate a work, in its, in comparison to other things. So they're thinking about that artist's own work, they're thinking about other films that are similar to it. Sometimes you can see the references a filmmaker is making. Sometimes you get it wrong. Yeah. I just curated a show that's up at the Barnes right now, and we had someone write about one of the pieces, and the artist was like, "That's not my intent." And I wouldn't have taken it out. I was like, I think the artist should write back, but this writer took it out. Which is, we're in an interesting space, I think, where people get access to things and have that opportunity to respond.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you're making me think about what does it mean, critique and serious attention, right, to the work. But also, I did want to say, like, what you're saying about people's ability to have something to take away and to spend time with and reflect on, right? Like, that is what a written product gives people the opportunity to do. So, in preparing for our conversation today, I did, kind of try to educate myself on scene because, like I said, I mean, yes, I am one of the people that was not as aware as I should have been of this, even knowing all the work you've been doing with the festival. And one thing that struck me reading about scene's origin was, the idea that work by artists of color does deserve to be seriously and lovingly, I believe was the word, critiqued by people who do understand the worlds that this work is coming from. So, in a previous interview, you've talked about the need for more space for work by folks of color to be lovingly critiqued by other folks of color. What does lovingly critiqued mean to you?
So that's a phrase that I borrowed from the writer Jeff Chang, who is a dear friend and I think an amazing critic. And he says you can't critique something unless you have love for it. And I think that's because you have to have a kind of foundational understanding. It's like your mother telling you look tired means you do, as opposed to somebody who's probably hating on you. You know what I mean? It's like, I think it's coming from that place of trust.
Go lay down instead of go put on some concealer or something. Yeah. I got you.
But coming from a place of understanding and of trust, I think is where that love comes from. But also sometimes it can be love for the culture. So we have a style guide that is always evolving, but we don't italicize words that are in Yoruba, for instance. We don't italicize words that are in Spanish or any African language, actually, because it's sort of like if you don't know what Orisha is, then you need to look that up.
Right.
It's not for us to other it for you, because for our community, we understand it, and so we present the journal as like, if you come from this understanding, or look it up.
And also, we're mainstreaming our culture as well, right?
Yeah.
And if it's not mainstream, that's on you, and that is not for us to correct. I love that. Because, I mean, there is something that is lost, right? When art is only written about through these kind of mainstream frameworks that were not built with us in mind, right? Yeah. Well, again, I want to, you thought that BlackStar was going to be something that was going to be a one-time thing, right? When did you understand that BlackStar was going to be more than that, right? And even more than an annual gathering, right? It's evolved now, year-round screenings, a journal, filmmaker seminars, labs, fellowships, all of these things are now in the BlackStar universe. It's evolved. It really has evolved in such a beautiful and wonderful way over the past more than a decade now.
I have some staff in the room and former staff, and I'd be curious what their answer is. But I feel like
y'all? Raise y'all's hand. Shout out to you, because the BlackStar network is. I mean, seriously, it takes a village, right?
It does.
It takes a village, a village and a visionary. So, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but yes, I absolutely want to acknowledge them.
I feel like I didn't really know that it would keep going until very recently. the first few years, did the festival from 2012 to 2019, just every year, had to raise all the money from 0 to 100 every single year on the side of full-time work. So I did it in the evenings, the weekends, any vacation time I had was spent working on BlackStar. So it felt very precarious to me because if I didn't do that work, it wouldn't happen. And I actually tried to step back in 2018, and it almost fell apart behind the scenes. And I think in 2019, I realized I had to like own it, but that didn't mean it was going to continue. I just knew I had to commit to it in a different way. In 2020, we launched BlackStar Projects as a full-time organization. We started out with 5 staff. At our peak, we were 23. We're down to 15 now. But the thing that's made me realize we're going to keep going, and this is very woo-woo, but I had our chart done.
I love this. Yes. Come on, chart. What did the chart say?
The chart said we, one, would attract random money, which I loved, because I love magic, but that we had longevity. You know, that was a question that I asked the astrologer, and it also came up for her in the reading, but that this would be around for a long time. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna lean into that, because I very much am always like, you know, and not out of scarcity because I really believe in abundance, but just because you see things closing all the time. And so for me, it's not a guarantee. It doesn't mean you don't give your all to it. It doesn't mean that you don't take it seriously, but it was never a guarantee. And now I'm kind of like, it would be interesting to relax a little bit into assuming that it will be here. And the other thing the reading said was to focus. So instead of having 6 projects, we're focusing on 3, Scene being one of them. And yeah, so now I feel like we're here in this form. The thing that Scene also, I think I didn't answer this earlier, offers to the work that we're doing is I'm really interested in cinema as a form. So not just film in terms of like entertaining, which is great. I mean, I, you know, watch all kinds of nonsense and it really, you know, feeds me. But I also think cinema and moving image as a serious art form needs to be studied and considered. And what we're interested in with the festival is a combination of things. One is a kind of political representation, stirring the pot, offering the idea of liberation, maybe showing you what it looks like. Also interested, though, in a kind of formal experimentation. And I think that doesn't get talked about enough. And so that's where Scene really emerges out of how do you talk about this work that people don't even have a name for sometimes, or don't see the artist in this particular way because they're not, you know, presenting in the conventional spaces. So it really is like this additional, because the festival is one time, and if you don't make it, you miss it. Mm-hmm. It's a way to kind of codify someone's practice.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there is something about the festival that can feel ephemeral, that people can have FOMO around, right? But like things like Scene, again, you can touch it, you can take it, you know, it is a thing that exists in the world. And the festival and everything that you have built around the festival, I mean, yes, maybe everybody cannot make it to anything, but it is a thing that exists in the world. And so to have a chart, I mean, that says this is a living, breathing thing that is here and that can be here and that you can be okay with it being here. And I just really,
if anyone's interested, it's a Leo with
exactly.
an Aquarius moon and a Leo. Gosh, what's the rising? Sagittarius rising.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
And also that is, I mean, that is incredible to think about, because I think what this is clear, and I wonder if this has become clear to you from the chart and for other reasons, that, I mean, the festival and everything that you are building around it, and even what you're just saying just now, like, this is not just a festival, this is infrastructure, cultural infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if that is how it is beginning to feel for you now as you think about focusing and what the purpose is going forward now that you are leaning into the idea that this is a thing that needs to exist. Obviously, there is a desire from the community that this thing that you have created is a thing that people need.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people in this room work for organizations or run organizations that post George Floyd, you had all kinds of random people offering you money. And so we had
random
that.
money.
And so at that time, you know, I have lots of ideas. I was very excited. And so when people came to us, we were like, yeah, we got an idea. We got a program. And so at some point we had the journal, we have a seminar called the William and Louise Greaves Filmmaker Seminar. And those are our three core programs, the seminar, the journal, and the festival. But we also started doing major exhibitions. We had a podcast. We did a filmmaker lab. And then we still do, this isn't formalized, but we do curatorial projects, which means we'll do you know, screenings or talks or things like that in partnership with other institutions internationally. And that is kind of, you know, it's itinerant, so there's no plan for it. We sort of wait for the invitation and respond. But that was a lot. We were doing all those programs.
Yeah, all the things.
Yeah, and people were burnt out. And then that money went away. And so we had to restructure and focus. And what was fascinating to me, and I promise I'm not an astrology-like nerd, but we narrowed down to those three programs. And then the reading said, this woman she only knew about the festival. She didn't know anything else we did. She said, you should focus on publishing. You should focus on film. You should focus on education. And I was like, well, we're already doing it.
Exactly. Alignment.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need her number, by the way. I mean, I do want to talk though. I mean, because it sounds like a lot of what you are doing is also about kind of curating outside of the confines of genre. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, do you feel like traditional categories are too small for kind of the stories that our communities are telling?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's really challenging. I think about an artist, Terrence Nance, who I've worked with a lot. And Terrence is really adamant about being called an artist first. But people often want to call him a filmmaker, or some people know him for his music, or some people know him as an actor. And for him, it's all of those things. Mm-hmm. But it's like, how do you write about someone whose practice is all over the place like that? Or even in a film of his, how do you write about it? Is it a documentary? Is it a narrative? You know, I think those things are really challenging. Genre, for the festival, it's something that we deal with because we use it to organize our review process, but we really hate it. I mean, it's kind of it's a way to put people in, literally put them in boxes, sometimes that they don't want to be in.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, because the description of BlackStar's work, it says it uplifts Black and Brown indigenous artists who are working outside of the confines of genre. So this is the work that they are doing is operating outside of those confines.
Yeah.
And so I kind of was obsessed with this phrase because it feels political, and you talk about your work and the political of that work. So I guess when even in evaluating with the rubric, what does it mean to work outside the confines of genre, artistically, culturally, and with BlackStar now as kind of an institution?
Well, I think it's always evolving. And I mean, the institution of it all, you know, is challenging. It's an institution. We have, you know, payroll and HR and, you know, young people with different working styles and, you know, all kinds of things that you are dealing with, and rent, you know?
Right.
So it's very, one of my staff said to me the other day that this was the best job for them under capitalism.
Wow.
And I was like, me too. You know, it was sort of like, this is the best we got for this structure.
Yeah. Well, that's a review. Shout out to, put that on LinkedIn. So speaking of capitalism, we're having this conversation in a moment when kind of culture and history and memory and identity are all being contested. I mean, you talk about, this is a journal called Scene, in a moment when there are those that would try to erase the culture, right? Art institutions, journalism, universities, public media, all of us are facing this pressure over who gets to tell the truth about this country and about the world. So I wonder how Scene contributes to that conversation. How are you thinking about kind of the political stakes of visual culture right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's been very, I think it was very scary 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. After October 7th, we took a very visible stand that was, you know, in support of Palestinian life. And we didn't know what would happen after that. And then that was before, the inauguration and the anti-DEI and all of that. And so I think we've been the precarity has shifted away from, is this gonna exist, to are we legal? Is our work legal? And so there's been a lot of, back to sort of institutional, I have spent a lot of time with lawyers and with, just getting different counsel about how we write about the work, how we, what we make public, do we take people off the website, like how do we keep people safe?
Yeah.
We're currently dealing with, we just wrapped submissions for the next film festival, and we had this beautiful film from an East African country, and the directors, we invited them and they were like, well, we can't get a visa, so we're removing the film. Which is like painful on both sides. I'm sure they didn't want to say that, but they should say it, it makes sense. And then for us, it was like something that we were really interested in. Yeah. And I don't have an answer to your question. I think we're just dealing with it every single day and trying to sort of like figure it out.
Yeah, but I mean, just hearing you, it does feel like, you do feel like, certainly BlackStar has a role in kind of these moments when official narratives are being narrowed or being erased. What do you think that role is for artists and for institutions?
So I can't take credit for this. I want to give a shout out to a former staff member who resigned in December, Imran Siddiqui, who was our chief comms officer for the first 6 years of our existence as a full-time organization. And I recently was describing Imran to somebody as like the Bayard Rustin of BlackStar, because I'm getting, the sort of credit, but Imran has really been doing a lot of the, writing my speeches, but also was pushing internally for us to move faster than I was ready to. Mm-hmm. Not that I disagreed. I think we've had a really beautiful alignment amongst our team. I think people are in the same place for most things, but we all move at different paces, and we have different things we're careful of. But Imran was pushing and crafted a lot of our public statements, our participation in the boycott against Israeli cultural institutions. And I bring them up because one of the things that they said in this push was that in this moment of erasure, people need to know they have a safe place. Mm-hmm. And we can be that as a beacon and as a home. And we've been taking that to heart.
I really appreciate you sharing that story and also in lifting up Imran's contribution, right, as part of this journey. I do wonder how you think about SEEN as kind of a part of a broader pushback against that erasure.
Yeah, I brought up the post-George Floyd, with some levity, but also the reality that the whiplash to that moment is that now people aren't getting covered, and they're not getting the stories, and they're not necessarily getting collected in the same ways. And so at some point it was like, oh, are we not going to have to do this work because people are in the mainstream publications? But clearly we do. We still have to be here. So I think very much our existence itself, saying something like people of the global majority is itself a political statement, and making sure that we are covering Black, brown, and indigenous people at all. Yeah. Saying that boldly is also a statement. I think the work that gets covered continues to be. I think in this issue there's pieces on Iran. There's, yeah.
Yeah, and that work, to your point, feels important, not just for now, but also for the future. You talked about SEEN as kind of an archive as well. I think a lot of journalism is about that first draft of history, but to have a journal feels archival. I agree with you. Like it is this record of artists and films and ideas and conversations that kind of can tell us who and where we are as a society, or who we were in that moment, right? Who do you kind of imagine when you think about who's going to find these issues 10 or 20 or 30 or 50 years from now?
Well, I have a little bit of an idea because it's happening right now for artists from the 60s and 70s. You know, there's been a huge wave over the last decade of young Black curators finding, you know, people like Howardina Pindell, or finding folks like Ulysses Jenkins, and, you know, finding this work that they may have been known by their peers. Mavis Pusey just had the show at the ICA, and you know, there's these artists that had some renown, and then some of them, I think the mainstream will say they're lost. They're not lost to their cousins, you know, they're not lost to their families.
Lost to whom?
But they maybe fell out of favor with the Met or, you know, the Whitney, and so they weren't showing anymore. But all these young curators have been rediscovering that work. So my hope is that Scene can be a part of both preserving and offering a space for people to find the next generation of people who may get lost.
Yeah. Yeah, and what would, in terms of future readers, what would you want them to understand about the moment that we're in, this era of Black and Brown and Indigenous visual culture?
I think for those of us who were able to say something that we did, for something that I think is unfortunate about some of the gaps is that sometimes people think they're doing something for the first time. And so the rigor of making better work gets lost because, you know, someone's doing video art or you know, contemporary dance in an installation, you know, singing Ngudi or somebody like that. And then that work is lost, is unknown in the 90s and early 2000s, and someone comes around in 2010 and maybe does the same thing and thinks they're doing it for the first time, and so they don't have the value, the opportunity to kind of like improve upon. They're starting from scratch, formally or, you know, whatever. And so I think in the future, maybe we won't have as many gaps, I guess, as I hope, but that feels very lofty. But I do hope there's a way that people can continue to kind of like build upon the work.
Yeah.
We also, I will say, Scene doesn't only talk about contemporary work. We do talk about older work, which is something in the festival as well. Like, we very much have Sankofa as a principle. So we're always talking about, we show repertory work, we talk about old work as well as contemporary work, because we know that we're not doing this for the first time.
Yeah, and that feels important. I mean, for you to draw on the archive as well, right? Well, I want to talk about BlackStar. I guess is kind of a teenager now, right? It's you guys are almost 15 years old, and to talk about the kind of institution of it, as you've kind of alluded to a bit. Aside from the chart that you had done, I want to know kind of what leadership has taught you about building a cultural institution that is still here and is still standing 14 years later.
I don't know what it's taught me. Don't do it. I'm just kidding. You know, it's been a real, it's been an incredible opportunity to see, there's so many different layers. I'm thinking right now of a filmmaker, Masati Fidel, who just graduated from Spelman a year ago. She came to the festival as a little kid with her mom, and she was featured in a music video that we showed. And then she came to the festival every summer, and it shaped how she thought about making work herself, and now she's a filmmaker. She's at AFI studying cinematography, and there's a bunch of those around. So I feel like we won't even know that impact for several years till those people start making work. There are people who are not young who felt inspired by work that they saw at the festival or they read about, and they started making work because they didn't know that what they were doing was art. So that feels, every time I hear a story like that, that feels like, oh, what a blessing it is to, you know, carry this thing, because oftentimes I just feel the burden of it. So it's nice to have those moments of, you know, affirmation. But it's been an interesting journey. We talked initially when starting the nonprofit organization in 2020, myself and the other leadership team and the board, about trying to create something different to other nonprofits. And I don't know that we're doing that. I'm not sure how possible it is. It was like very much a goal, and then I think we got hit in the face with like just some capitalism. You know, just leave it at that.
The institutionality. of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that part has been really, really hard. It's not fun to be the man.
Yeah, no.
I've been bossy my entire life, and I've been in
I see Mom
management.
laughing. Yes, we love that. Talk to her a little bit more after this.
I've been in management for a long time, but I was not the stop, you know, and so I can't blame something on anyone else, and that weighs a lot, and that's been really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I could keep asking you questions, but there are probably people out here that have questions for you. And so I want to shift to that. But as we get ready for you all to ask a question, I think the last thing that I would ask you is about the Philadelphia and Atlanta of it all. Again, welcome to Atlanta. BlackStar is rooted in Philadelphia, the other place that I love so much in this country. But those are both cities with these deep Black cultural and political and artistic traditions. I wonder what you would say about what cities make possible for Black cultural work, especially as we sit in this space.
Well, there would be no BlackStar without the National Black Arts Festival.
Yes.
It very much, I went to high school here, middle and high school here. I spent 6 years. And I know Malcolm X Day is today. I used to go to that like regularly. I was part of the Zulu Nation, doing other kinds of cultural programming. But National Black Arts Festival, I believe, is partly why we moved here, right, Mom? Like going to that.
That's incredible.
So I think about festivals and how they impact you. Going to the Brooklyn Street Festival. I went to undergrad in DC. There are Caribbean festivals there. That culture of what was possible was very much imprinted on me. And so I think in most cities where there's sizable Black populations, there's going to be a Juneteenth, there's going to be, somebody's carnival or, what have you. And I think that we gather. We gather and we celebrate what we have. And, that just feels like that's what we do.
Well, that certainly makes this a homecoming for you then this weekend. And now Scene is coming home to Atlanta. So thank you very much for that. We're going to open it up for questions. If y'all have a question, I think we have a microphone that is going to come to you. Oh, I see one down here in the front.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. I wanted to talk to you really quickly about just the question, with you being able to be growing up here in the South and moving to the North and then coming back. How has that been for you as far as navigating coming back into the scene and navigating, networking, how your work space is and your workload and how you kind of adjusted, with the busyness of the North and then coming back to a little bit slower progression? How's that been for you?
Well, I'm not back. I'm here for 36
Not
hours.
Yet. Not yet. Not yet. We're recruiting. Come on. I'll send you some listings.
So I don't know. I've been in Philly for over 20 years, which is wild. So I can't really answer that question.
It's hard to leave the cheesesteak and soft pretzels.
Do you want to answer it, Errin?
I mean, look, I lived in Philadelphia for 9 years. I moved back 2 years ago. I miss Philadelphia all the time, partly because of people like Maori, because of things like the film festival. It is just such a culturally rich place, especially for our culture. There are things that I love about it so much, but Atlanta is the kind of place that you can leave because you always know that you can always come home and you can pick up right where you left off. For people who think that Atlanta has changed so much and there are things that are so different, the Atlanta that I love is still very much here and very much vibrant. And so to be able to come back and immediately just kind of reconnect with that has been such a gift every single day. And my mom is here, so, being able to go to her house and eat her food and also get, free access to lemon pepper wings and sweet tea is very meaningful for me. Yes, we have a question here.
Hello, Maori.
Hello, Jamila.
Welcome back to Atlanta. I wouldn't call you bossy. I just think you've always had a vision for how you saw your life unfolding and manifesting, and you just needed others to get on board with it. And you are everything that you believe you are. You are that woman. The BlackStar Film Festival, will it always be in Philly? Have you thought about taking it across the country or making it international? Or is it just Philly, Cannes has the Cannes Film Festival? Will BlackStar stay in Philly?
That's a great question. So I am I recently won an award just this week from the tourism office as a vanguard. And no, I'm not saying that for you to clap.
But
You're not going to want to clap when I finish.
I'll say you can clap. We're gonna let you have this.
And the organization that awarded me that, like in 2008, named me a creative ambassador. And I also got an award that my mother now calls me, that's called a cultural treasure. So I share all of that because for all of those accolades, I'm always like, Philly? No, you know. But if you talk about Philly, then I'm going to defend it. So I think that's a very Philadelphia thing to do, is to kind of hate on it until pushed against the wall. But we were at a venue called International House for the first couple of years, and then that venue closed. And at that moment, I think it was 2018 when we knew it was going to close, I started looking around to other places. So I actually did think about, I did not want to be in a city where we would be in competition with another Black film festival. So for me, we would not come here, so I would not want to compete with Bronze Lens. But we did think about, the only exceptions to those were New York and LA because they could hold multiple, you know, in my mind. So we did look at Brooklyn. We looked at DC, only because the festival in DC is documentary focused, so we felt like we could kind of like move in there. We looked at Baltimore. And I'm trying to remember, there was like one other city. And for whatever reason, things didn't work out, but I think it was because people in Philly were pulling. And so we ended up moving to Annenberg Center at the University of Pennsylvania. And so we were there for, the COVID happened. So we never were able to realize the festival there except 1 year. And then the next year we were to do it, they told us they were having HVAC work done and wanted us to change our dates. And I was like, no, thank you. So we then moved to our current place at the Kimball Center. All of that to say, I no longer program the festival since 2020. And our festival director is a Philadelphia nationalist. And she is like, we're not moving, even though she doesn't live in Philly. She lives in Edinburgh. And a lot of the board, like people are very tied to Philly. But we have been interested in doing other programs. And so the seminar was created so that we would be able to travel that. We did it at Stanford, and the team was like, can we go back? So now it's at Stanford. So I'm still waiting for something that I can create that will be in other places. We've done some programming in Mexico City and in Dakar and in Nairobi, just upon like invitation from other orgs, but it hasn't been something that will recur just yet. But before I'm out, that's my hope that we do that. Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much for coming, speaking. Oh, hi, up here. And you kind of talked a lot, well, you've talked a bit about things that have influenced you throughout your work. And to me, influence kind of signals aspiration. And I'm curious on what are some things that do make you feel seen as you are, whether that was growing up or currently.
That's a great question. Yeah.
You come on down here and pull up a chair too.
There are artists that are like guiding lights for me, like Bjork. I think about, there's been certain fashion designers that when I see their work, like Grace Wells Bonner, like I just feel like, okay, I get all these things you're pulling into here, and then you're making this beautiful thing. Other artists like Colleen Smith. So I think that's mostly where I feel seen in that work. There's a film that I refer to all the time, Amelie, which was like, it just felt so like, if I could have made that, that would be like my style in every way. So yeah, I think it's mostly that. And sometimes places, like I think cities make me feel more myself than others. Philly's not one of them.
You know what? You're not going to keep talking about Philadelphia. You love Philadelphia.
But yeah, is that answering your question? Okay.
Hello. Hey, I wanted to ask, it stuck with me when you said that your business was a teenager. That's a milestone at its largest. And I wanted to ask, like, what fuels you or fills your endurance creatively and as an entrepreneur, especially for the younger entrepreneurs in the room?
I don't know. I think I felt a responsibility. The first year we did the festival, we got written up in Ebony, and they called it the Black Sundance, that first festival. So then people were like, when's the next one? You know, and I didn't feel like I had an opportunity not to do it again. I don't know why, because obviously I have freedom of free will. But every year initially just felt like I was holding this thing that had to happen. And what was beneficial to me was initially the first 10 years was exercising a curatorial practice. I had something that I could, you know, do whatever I wanted with. Now that's not the case. I have to collaborate. And, you know, that has also had its own kind of like learning that's been really interesting. But meeting artists, you know, there's always like some amazing artist that you've never heard of every year or now more than one, but like there's just so many new people, so many new works. I think that also keeps me going. But yeah, there was really just kind of like an obsessive need to carry this thing on. I don't know that it was necessarily healthy, so I don't recommend it. And it was not very lucrative for a very long time. So it was, yeah, just sort of like holding this thing.
Hi, my name is Kiara. So what types of stories do you typically see the most of at the festival, and what types of story would you like to see more of?
It changes every year. This year, not on purpose, but we're really excited to see there are a lot of stories about Haiti. So we're really excited to disrupt the 250th narrative to talk about a liberation we actually care about.
In Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia. So we're talking about a 222nd. So for whatever reason, there were a lot of films about Haiti. There were a lot of films about organizing. I don't know if that's because we had a film about Tony K. Bombara last year that was about organizing, but that just happened to be what came. And when I was programming the festival, that was always the case. People would say, do you do a theme? And it's just like, it just kind of emerges. Like people are, you know, that thing that Quincy Jones says, like, genius isn't you're tapping into the ether. And so I think people get the same message and similar films will come out. I will say, for anyone who's never made a film, we do not need any more films about natural hair. Oh. Don't make those. We don't need films about colorism. Don't make those. But otherwise, I feel like I can't say what story I'm looking for because, you know, most people's families are so incredibly fascinating. And if you just made a film about your grandma, like, I mean, there could be 50,000 of those and they would be so different. Personally, I really like work that bends genre, like Jen Nkiru is one of my favorite filmmakers, and she calls her work documentary, and I'm always like, is it? You know, because it's so, there's like choreography, and there's fashion, and there's interesting like manipulation of archival material, so that kind of stuff is really interesting to me. I also love a rom-com, which we don't get enough of. Yeah, people don't make rom-coms enough, and they don't make comedies enough.
So what if it was a rom-com about my grandma's journey to natural hair and colorism?
If it was funny, I'd be into it.
I'll work on that script.
Hello. Have you identified your audience yet, or did you just begin to do the work and your audience is unfolding?
Yeah, I felt like it's that, you know, line from A Better Blues, if you play the shit that the people will like, the people will come. And so I was really curious the very first festival was only curated, and I was like, I'm interested in this work, and I'm curious if anyone else is. And 1,500 people showed up, you know? So, and then they spread the word to their friends, right? And then they kept telling their friends. So, and we don't take an audience for granted, but we also don't have them identified in advance. We just try our best to explain what the work is so that people who might be looking for a particular topic or a particular filmmaker or a particular region that they know to come looking for it, I think the audience has changed quite a bit. I mean, anyone who's ever thrown a party, you get about 4 years before people graduate, they go have kids, whatever. So you're never going to have the same folks. Although we do enjoy some lifers so far, 15-year lifers. But I think by and large, the audience has transformed as it should. But the thing we don't do is take them for granted. But I can't say we know who they are. We have not spent the money to identify and data mine. I don't know. I know currently they're about 40% from the Philadelphia area, 60% from the rest of the country and internationally. It seems like we skew just randomly, like Instagram tells us, I don't know if this is true, but according to their data, we skew older millennial and female and queer. But when you're at the festival, I see everybody. People bring their babies, there's many elders that come out. That's one thing that's been really important to me. We do this seminar at Stanford that has a very small population, like 125 people. And this year in particular, I noticed there was probably 15 elders who were in the audience. And I was like, these people could be doing anything they want. They are retired, they could be anywhere. And the fact that they spent these 3 days with us going to these conversations and everything meant a lot, because I was like, that means this is resonant. It's not feeling, tired. And but for the festival, it's just so many people. There's white people, people are from all over.
Hi, Maori.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Another Philadelphian in the house.
Yay. So my question is, I'm thinking about when you started BlackStar, was there ever a process where you had to let go of this vision and allow other people in? Because I know as a creative person, sometimes I want to own the whole process. Was there a process in letting go and allowing people in for you?
Yeah, so the first few years of the programming committee, I took people's suggestions, but I still made the program I wanted to make. Because sometimes people, I don't think, would get what the filmmaker was doing, and I would include the film anyway, even if everyone else hated it. But I was very much interested in people's thoughts because they weren't mine. So I did create the program with their recommendations in mind. Nihad started out as a volunteer, and then she joined our programming committee, and then she became our program became program director in 2020 when we started full time. And that year, because of COVID, it was the first time, so I told you all I've been doing it on the side. So I would do, BlackStar 9 to 5, it would be my 6 to 10 till 2, and it would be my weekends and all of that. During COVID, because we were at home, I thought, okay, I'm running this organization, I'm learning about infrastructure, bylaws for the board, doing all of that administrative work, fundraising. And I was like, I'll watch the films at night the way that I used to. But I think because we were at home in the same room, the same computer, I didn't leave to go somewhere else, I couldn't do it. And after about 6 weeks of realizing I had not watched a film, I could not get to the screen, Nihad and I had a come to Jesus moment, and she was like, I think you gotta let go. I got this. And I was like, but do you? And she did. And Nihad curates in a more democratic way than I do. She curates by coalition, and has also built an incredibly strong programming committee. We have some of the best programmers in the world who are working with us, and she listens to them and she takes their recommendations, and only occasionally will we have to kind of override something. There's a film this year that she was like, no, but that's her privilege to include that film, but I had to let that go, and that was just by exhaustion. It wasn't on purpose. And once the program was really beautiful, I was like, okay, well, maybe I don't have to do this. I still participate in the panel selections and things like that. And for Scene, I edited the first issue, but then we brought on a guest editor, and then we have a full-time editor-in-chief ever since. So that one was something that I knew I had to let go because of the festival model. So it's gotten much easier. I will say, in winnowing down our programs, an executive coach worked with me to realize, even though all my ideas had gotten us here, it was no longer me. That BlackStar was its own organism, And so it wasn't about what Maori wants to do. It was about what the organism is doing or where it wants to go. And so there are lots of things that I've had to let go, like the seminar moving around or, giving up the podcast and things like that, because it was like what made sense for the organization. So it's been really hard, but I think growing up in nonprofit arts and seeing the way some things did not work well was also like, I was like, I know I don't want to be like X, Y, and Z org. And I'm not going to be at BlackStar forever, even though BlackStar will be forever. So
I think it will be forever. I think we've got time for one more, and I'm gonna need that executive coach's number 2, girl. Let me just download it all to me, the whole crew.
Hey, Maori,
Hi.
good to see you. First, I want to just say thank you for making BlackStar a place for film workers as well who support filmmakers. I think so many works get picked up at BlackStar and relationships get made. And as I'm thinking about the future of film festivals, and there's a big conversation in the industry around critiquing film festivals, I feel like BlackStar really stands out, but I'm sure you all are still navigating those critiques about, like, can't we just go straight to distribution? Some filmmakers saying we don't need the film festival. But could you speak a little bit about what makes kind of BlackStar untouchable when it comes to the special sauce that you all created, even down to like the land acknowledgements, the way that you create inclusive environments? But I think there's something about the craft and how you engage folks in the diaspora, especially keeping it Black-centered and still including all folks across the BIPOC community. I think there's something special there that I wonder if it has something to do with why BlackStar will continue to live on past so many other festivals.
Thank you, Assad, for that question. I think we don't take that for granted. That's what came to mind when you said it, is that we don't take it for granted. So every year we're thinking through all these issues. We're really trying not to be conceited, like we're not like, oh, we're untouchable. When you said that, I was like, aren't we? But I understand what you mean, because there does feel a way we have been protected, and it's the team. I mean, I have the most amazing people working with me, and in many extensions, like the full-time staff, our jurors, our program committees, the people who work just for the festival, the people who work on scene. We have a team of editors who work on that, an art director. Like, all of these people are just incredible and amazing. And I think that, I think not taking anybody or anything for granted, and we're artists first, right? That's the festival for me. I think that's one of the things I wanted to make sure was really different, that we were not thinking about the audience, we were thinking about the filmmakers. What was their experience of the festival going to be? And I think by extension, to your point, film workers as well feel that. We're not a market, but we do have these market effects because of that. But we struggle, we still have genre as categories, and we still offer awards, and we do that because we're Oscar and BAFTA qualifying for short films, and so for us, we need to keep those things so people have access to that, which can be important to their career. We also have a structure of, we charge for the festival. I wish it could be free, but we have to make some income in order to even keep being a nonprofit, even though the festival doesn't, pay for itself, right? But there's ways in which we're dealing with this right now, and we deal with it every year. I think there are people for whom BlackStar is the Mecca, and it is, everything. And then I stay humbled because I'm in meetings, particularly with Hollywood people who are like, I've never heard of this. Who are you? And they're incredibly dismissive. And there's a festival in Philadelphia that is, I'm gonna be kind, they do really incredible repertory work, but their festival is not interesting. I know this is being streamed, but it's true, They show films that are at other festivals, so it's not like a curatorial, it's not a curator's festival to me. And they get support locally and also from distributors because they've been around for so long and because they program year round, that they will sometimes steal a film, not that festival, but a distributor will steal a film from us if the filmmaker wants to be with us and give it to them, even though there's not going to be any audience at that screening. And it's not going to be an audience that is like a BlackStar audience, you know, which is like no other, you know. So that's something that we can't take it for granted, because as much as people are praising us, there are people who are like, no. And we fight, as filmmakers will say, oh, I want a world premiere at BlackStar. Some do, and a lot don't. They still wait for Cannes, or they take it to Sundance, or they somewhere else first, and they think they're gonna come back to us. We're very much like the family reunion. People are like, I'm gonna come home to BlackStar, which is a beautiful sentiment, but sometimes doesn't work for us. Because sometimes by the time you come home, you was out in the streets and we're not interested anymore. And so it's like an interesting, it's just an interesting interplay trying to balance all of that. But to your point, we don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to have to care about premieres, but it's something festivals have to get sponsors. And so all of that is always being factored in.
Wow, the Philadelphia really jumped out on that last answer, and I'm so proud. The city would be proud of you for that. Maori, thank you so much. I think expressing gratitude for not just this conversation, but all the work you continue to do with BlackStar, with Scene, and beyond is so appreciated. And so I want to say thank you to you. I want to say thank you to everybody that was here today for this conversation. And I really hope that this talk reminds everybody here that being seen is an act of authorship and of criticism and of memory and community and power. If you want to grab your issue of Scene, you can do that right outside. There's a table right over here, over my shoulder, and you can keep the conversation going and support the institutions that are creating space for our stories, our images, and our ways of seeing the world. And with that, thank you all so much.
Thank you, Errin.
Thank you.
Can we get one more hand for Maori and Errin? My name is Dr. Fahamu Puku. I'm the founder and executive director of ADAMA, and thrilled to have you all here today and to be a part of this conversation. There were a couple things that kind of came up for me that I just wanted to highlight that you said, Maori, and one was this notion of cultural infrastructure and the importance of it, which is also part of the reason that ADAMA exists. We think about, as Maori alluded to, in 2020, everybody was all on board with supporting Black organizations and supporting Black artists, and institutions were hiring people to come in and help diversify their programming and all of the ways in which they showed up in the world. And as soon as that was no longer popular, they rescinded all of those acts, right? And so taking the time to be intentional and to create spaces that center us, center our narrative, center our stories is critical at this stage. It's been critical, but it's super critical now because we're not a trend, right? We've been here, everything, I saw a t-shirt the other day that said, everything about this country Black people made, right? And this is absolutely the truth. And, creating spaces like this, creating spaces like BlackStar and like Scene and like ADAMA are why we exist and why we're here. And one of the ways that you can continue to support these kind of efforts is by clicking your phone right now to, scan this QR code and make a donation to ADAMA. Our programming is free, and we, maintain free and accessible programming throughout the year because it's important for us, for our community, to have a place to call home. Right? As Errin mentioned, you can get copies of Scene magazine right over here to the right, and we encourage you also to stick around and check out the latest exhibition, The African Game, which features the work of photographer and filmmaker Andrew Dosunmu. It's a really, really beautiful exhibition that centers on the spectacle of football from the perspective of the fans, right? And so it's a really, really exciting exhibition with a short film to match. Lastly, I just want to let you guys know that I'm not just standing here looking beautiful for my own edification. This t-shirt that I'm wearing is available in the store. We'd love for you to turn around. Yes, yes, yes. Because now you can literally take 85 to Africa or to the African diaspora right here at ADAMA. And our next ADAMA Arts Salon takes place on May 30th. May 31st. This one will feature SCAD Museum Director Alex Deloach Davis in conversation with Haitian artist Eugene Patrick. Patrick Eugene. So please, please, please make sure to come back, tell a friend. We hope to see you again. The doors are open, sales are robust. Thank you for being here, Errin. Maori, it's a pleasure. Yes.